The world doesn't look like a place meant for living anymore. It feels more like the afterimage of something that once was, burned into memory, but stripped of its warmth. The air is a strange, choking haze, tinted silver when the light breaks through, though the light itself isn't steady anymore. Ever since the moon began tearing itself apart, the sky has never known peace. You can see the scars above, fractures that glow faintly like veins of molten glass, lines slicing across that once familiar white disk. Chunks drift away and burn as they fall, sometimes like meteors, sometimes like ash. Every night is a reminder that the ground beneath our feet is temporary. Gravity itself feels like it's holding its breath. The seasons have stopped making sense. Summer bleeds into winter without warning. We used to count months by the tilt of the sun and the pull of the tides, but the tides don't listen anymore. Oceans surge without rhythm, swallowing entire coasts and then retreat, leaving behind plains of brine and carcasses. Where rivers once wound lazily through towns, there are only troughs of dust or sudden walls of floodwater that appear like ambushes. Nothing is predictable, except the ruin. I remember the city as it used to be, glass and steel reaching upward, with confidence, the streets full of sound and color. Now it's just skeletons of towers, facades eaten by fire, husks blackened and hollow. Whole neighborhoods have collapsed under their own weight, like bones crumbling into powder. In the empty windows, you can see where curtains once swayed, where laughter once poured out. Now only the wind sings through broken glass, and even that sound feels wrong, strained, thin, like it doesn't want to linger. Traveling through what's
left of civilization is like drifting through someone else's nightmare.
Highways are ruptured by earthquakes that no one can predict anymore. Bridges sag into rivers that no longer flow steady but thrash and foam like beasts. Forests, what little remain, are scorched down to their roots. The wildfires never ended. They roll through like waves of orange, fueled by the heat of an atmosphere gone mad. Even the rain burns sometimes, dragging chemical soot from the sky, leaving welts on skin and rot on crops. The old governments are ghosts, their flags still hang in some places faded and shredded, symbols of promises long abandoned. Now it's only factions, some clinging to the scraps of law, others carving out power through violence. You'll find fortified outposts on the ridges, survivors trading bullets for bread. Scavenger clans roam the ruins, their banners made from patchwork cloth, their voices carried on makeshift radios to stake claims over rubble. Not everyone fights, though. Some huddle in forgotten basements, whispering prayers to a god they hope is still listening, waiting for a savior that will never come. No institution holds sway anymore. The power grids collapsed when the tides went mad, when the ocean swallowed. The coastal stations and the winds ripped apart transmission lines. Hospitals, once sanctuaries, turned into tombs when medicines ran out and generators died. Schools stand gutted, blackboards cracked in two, their chalky lessons fading into dust. Even the military fractured, commanders hoarding supplies, soldiers scattering to protect their own families. Authority no longer comes from law. It comes from whoever has the most water, the most bullets, or the most fear to command. And yet, there are still voices, small ones crackling through the static of radios like mine. Strangers reaching out across the broken airwaves, keeping each other alive with words, directions, warnings. Hope doesn't come in the form of armies anymore. It comes in the form of a single voice reminding you that you are not alone in the wreckage. That's why I keep this old transmitter running, even if no one's listening, because maybe someone is. Maybe some survivor is out there in the dark, shivering under a collapsing sky, and my words are the only proof they're not the last human alive, but I won't lie. The moon falling apart above us weighs on everything. It isn't just a spectacle, it's a death sentence written in slow motion. The tides it stirs, the storms it conjures, the debris it hurls down, every piece of it reshapes the earth into something less recognizable, less survivable, and people know it. You can hear it in the way they talk, voices low, eyes cast upward, afraid to look too long but unable to look away. It's like watching a noose tighten around the whole planet. Still I keep breathing, still I keep watching, still I keep talking into this microphone, hoping my voice might carry farther than the fear. The world is a ruin, yes, but ruins can still echo, and sometimes echoes are enough to keep us from forgetting what it means to be alive. My name doesn't matter much anymore. Names were for the old world, for paperwork and paychecks, for greetings in the morning, when the sky was still blue and the moon still whole. Out here, what matters isn't who you were, but whether you're still breathing when the sun goes down, if the sun even shows itself through the haze. Still, for the sake of honesty, for the sake of keeping one scrap of humanity in my voice, I'll tell you. My name is Caleb Maris. Once I was a broadcast technician for a local radio station tucked in the corner of a Midwestern city. Now I'm just the last voice rattling inside an old transmitter that hums like a dying animal. That's my survival now. Radio, words, static, a cracked microphone that hasn't worked right since the surge fried half the circuits. It may not sound like much, but this machine keeps me alive. Not just because it helps me trade information, though sometimes it does, but because it keeps me tethered to something larger than my own hunger, larger than the constant ache of thirst. The voice in the dark matters. Even if no one answers, the act of speaking reminds me I haven't gone silent inside myself. I've learned to live on the fringes. Scavenging is an art form now, not a shame. I hunt through ruins, through grocery. Stores gutted of everything except dust and twisted cans. Some are bloated and poisonous from heat, but if you know how to check, you can still find safe food. I've pulled dried beans from collapsed pantries, rice hardened into bricks, powdered, milk turned into lifelines. For water, I've gotten good at collecting the condensation that drips through fractured pipes after a storm, or boiling runoff in battered pots until it doesn't sting the tongue. Survival isn't about thriving anymore, it's about stringing. One breath to the next, one heartbeat to the next, until morning comes, but surviving costs more than it gives. My hands are always cracked from handling metal too hot from the sun. My lungs ache from the soot storms that roll across the plains like they own the earth. Nights are cold enough to make my teeth chatter, and there's no comfort left in fire. The smoke draws attention, and attention out here is a death sentence. Raiders still roam, their laughter sharp as broken glass when they find a weaker soul to bleed dry. I've had to run, hide, fight. My knuckles remember, my ribs remember, my conscience remembers too. What drives me to keep going? That's harder to answer. Some days it's just instinct, the body refusing to let go even when the mind whispers to stop. Other days it's memory. I see faces when I close my eyes. My wife Lydia, who laughed with her whole chest and never feared to argue with me when she thought I was wrong. She did make it past the first winter after the tides went wild. The cold took her, quiet as sleep, and I sat there helpless, holding her hand while the fire sputtered and died. My son, Aaron, he was 10 when the first fragments of the moon fell. He used to ask me why the sky was breaking. I never had an answer that satisfied him. he was swept away in the second flood. One moment he was there, clinging to me in the water, and then just gone, pulled under before my hands could save him. That kind of loss gnaws at you. It eats marrow, so some days I don't know what I'm holding on to. Maybe it's cowardice. Maybe it's defiance. Maybe it's just the small, flickering hope that someone out there is listening when I speak into this dead radio. Human connection, that's the last currency we've got. Not bullets, not food, connection. The reminder that even in this splintered, collapsing place, someone's voice can still reach yours. It wasn't always like this for me. After the first disasters, when the seas went mad, when fires painted the sky orange, I tried to keep order. I joined one of the survivor camps in the city, barricaded in an old stadium. We rationed food, kept watch on the walls, tried to pretend. We were rebuilding, but fear rots quicker than bread. Arguments turned into fights, fights into blood. Leaders rose and fell in the span of weeks, each one more desperate, more cruel than the last. I left the night they strung up a boy for stealing. Water. His face still haunts me. His crime was thirst, and they hanged him for it. That was the night I swore I'd rather walk alone into the wasteland than live under false order. Now I move from shelter to shelter, scavenger to scavenger. Sometimes I find others. Sometimes I share a meal, a fire, a moment of fragile laughter. But I never stay. I've seen what happens when people gather in numbers. Greed finds a way to gnaw its way in. Fear multiplies. And then trust breaks like brittle glass. I've bled enough trust already.
But the radio, that's different. The radio is safe. I can give my voice, but not my throat. I can share my story, but not my location. And in return, sometimes, just sometimes, I hear a voice crackle back. Once I heard a woman singing. Her
voice was soft, weary, but steady, like she was daring the broken world to remember music. Another time, a man whispered coordinates to a water cache, then signed off before I could thank him. Those moments keep me alive more than food ever could. Proof that we aren't ghosts yet. Proof that survival isn't just about blood and bone. It's about memory, connection, the refusal to vanish. Resilience isn't heroic out here. It's ugly. It's chewing leather because you can't find food. It's sleeping with a knife under your cheek. It's stitching your own wounds with wire when there's no thread left. It's waking up another morning you didn't think you'd live through and cursing the sky for making you prove yourself again. But even in that ugliness, there's a kind of stubborn grace. Each sunrise is a spit in the face of the end. Each word I speak into this microphone is a reminder that silence hasn't won. When I talk, I sometimes imagine Aaron is listening, that maybe somehow his small voice will answer back, carried across the air like a miracle. I know it's foolish. The dead don't come back, not even in echoes, but still I imagine. And maybe that's the root of it. Maybe I keep going because hope, even when it's hollow, is lighter to carry than despair. I am Caleb Maris, a voice in the static, a survivor, though I don't know for how long. I don't claim wisdom or strength or purity. I've failed, I've run, I've taken what wasn't mine, but I'm still here. And as long as I can keep this generator humming, as long as I can keep my words alive, maybe the world hasn't ended completely. Maybe, in some fractured way, it's still listening. The crisis isn't a single event anymore. It's a slow suffocation, 1,000 smaller endings stacking on top of each other until you forget what breathing used to feel like. People imagine apocalypse as a single day, a siren, a bright flash, or war. But this isn't a day. It's a season that doesn't end. It's the moon breaking itself apart above us piece by piece, pulling the earth down with it like a drowning man, dragging another beneath the water. When the first fracture lit up across the moon's surface, scientists tried to calm us. They said it was stress fissures, the result of tidal forces, nothing immediate to fear. But then the tides started lashing at the coasts without warning. Whole harbors vanished overnight. Cities like New Orleans and Mumbai drowned under walls of water that receded only to return stronger. The cycle of destruction never slowed. Oceans dragged themselves where they didn't belong, grinding humanity's coasts into foam. Now the maps are worthless. Shorelines aren't lines anymore. They're wounds, bleeding in and out with no rhythm. I live inland, but even here, the floods reach us. 2 weeks ago, a river I grew up near surged without rain, without storm, swallowing bridges and sweeping
homes off their foundations. I watched cattle carcasses float through the streets, bloated and spinning like grotesque buoys.
Survivors climbed rooftops, waving torches for help that never came. I couldn't save them. I couldn't save anyone. By morning, most were gone, taken by the water or by the raiders who followed it. Because where disaster strikes, scavengers always arrive. Food is running out faster now. For a while, scavenging was enough. Canned goods hidden in basements, dry goods sealed in buckets, jerky left, forgotten in gas stations. But even those scraps have limits. Heat waves have cooked most, stored food into rot. Mice and insects claim what's left before we can. And with the moon tearing the tides, farmland is useless. Crops die from saltwater intrusion one season and parched drought the next. Nothing grows steady anymore. I've tried my hand at small gardens sheltered under scraps of plastic tarp, but the soil itself feels poisoned. Rain comes black with ash, leaving residue that kills whatever dares to sprout. Water is worse. Once we could count on wells, reservoirs, even the trickle of rain runoff. But the aquifers are drying, poisoned by salt or by chemicals dredged up from the earth. I boil what I can, filter it through cloth and charcoal, pray it doesn't burn the throat going down. Every drop feels stolen, not earned. And every day it feels like the earth is drying itself out from the inside, wrung hollow. Fuel? Gone. The first months after collapse, people bled the gas stations dry. Cars were abandoned on highways, their tanks siphoned, their wheels stripped. I pedal a generator now, coaxing out enough power to keep my radio alive. I move on foot. If I'm
lucky, I'll find a working bicycle, though the roads are so broken that even wheels don't carry you far.
Once in a while, I'll see someone roaring past in a rig that somehow still runs on hoarded diesel. Those people are usually raiders. They always smell blood before they smell fuel. I met a group of survivors last month on the Northern Highway. They called themselves the Lanterns. They wore old headlamps strapped to their foreheads and spoke in whispers as if light itself was dangerous. They carried children with them, wrapped in blankets, their eyes wide and silent. For a night, I stayed with them, shared a fireless meal, crackers and dried corn they'd scavenged from a collapsed silo. They told me their plan was to reach the mountains, to climb high enough that the floods couldn't touch them, high enough to find springs not yet poisoned. I wanted to believe in them. But when dawn came, their leader pressed a knife to my throat while I slept. They took my water jug, left me the crumbs. That's the world now. Even the gentle are starving wolves when pressed. I survived because I always sleep with a knife under my cheek. That morning, it was enough. But the betrayal
cut deeper than the blade.
It taught me again what I keep forgetting. that kindness is a currency few can afford. The weather has grown more violent each passing week. Dust storms sweep across the plains like living creatures, smothering everything in their path. You can't breathe in them without choking on grit. You can't walk without your skin being sandblasted raw. And when they lift, they leave silence behind. Silence so sharp it hurts the ears, like the world itself is waiting for the next blow. The storms aren't natural. Scientists said the moon's breakage was shifting Earth's gravitational balance, tugging on weather systems, stirring chaos in the jet streams. What once were rare storms now circle endlessly, colliding with one another, feeding themselves. Temperatures spike to unbearable highs during the day, then plummet to killing frost.
At night,
The atmosphere doesn't know what to do anymore, torn between extremes. I remember hearing a broadcast months ago before the last observatory went dark. A scientist explained it plain. The moon is Earth's anchor. Without its steady pull, everything
unravels, tides grow violent, axial tilt shifts, seasons dissolve.
The very heartbeat of the planet loses rhythm. She spoke with a calm voice, but you could hear the despair under it. A planet doesn't survive without a moon. It just dies slower. And that's what we're doing now. Dying slower, I can feel it in my body. My bones ache from malnutrition. My vision blurs when the hunger stretches too long. My skin burns under the toxic rain, and I've developed a cough that doesn't leave me. Every survivor carries their own sickness, rashes, infections, parasites. There are no doctors left, no pharmacies to plunder. When you get sick, you either get lucky or you don't. Last night, I nearly didn't make it. A storm rolled in without. Warning, lightning tearing through the clouds like veins of fire. I was in the open, too far from my shelter. I ran until my lungs collapsed, found cover beneath the overturned hull of a truck. The rain came down hard, burning where it touched. I wrapped myself in tarp, prayed my skin wouldn't blister too.
Bad. The thunder didn't sound like thunder anymore. It sounded like the sky itself splitting.
And above it all, through the clouds, I saw the moon breaking again, another great chunk tumbling away like a tooth from a rotten jaw. The sky lit blood red as it entered the atmosphere, then the ground shook as it struck somewhere far off. Even from miles away, the earth trembled like it was afraid. I've learned not to sleep too deep anymore. Sleep is dangerous. Storms don't wait for you to wake. Raiders don't respect dreams. Hunger gnaws loud enough to keep you restless anyway. But sometimes exhaustion wins, and when I wake, it takes me minutes to remember where I am. The world feels like a nightmare you can't wake from, but it's the only one we have left. Why is survival becoming harder each day? Because the disasters layer themselves like scars. You can't heal from one before another tears you open. Because resources don't replenish. Because every survivor who still lives grows more desperate. Because hope itself thins, stretched. To breaking, I can offer some lessons though, small truths scraped from the edge of disaster.
Never trust clear skies. They are liars. Storms form faster now than eyes can track. Boil every drop of water, even if it looks pure. The air poisons it, the ground poisons it, the very clouds poison it. Sleep with your knife where you can. Reach it before you can breathe. Never stay too long in one place. Familiarity makes you prey. And never, ever look too long at the moon. It will break something inside you.
The crisis isn't coming. It's here. It's in the hunger twisting your stomach, in the smoke burning your lungs, in the silence after a neighbor betrays you for a sip of water. It's in the cracks that glow across the night sky, each one a reminder that this world is unraveling from above and below. and I am caught in between. Just a man with a radio, clinging to a voice while everything else falls apart. The air tonight feels heavier than usual. Dust clings to every breath like a parasite, sinking deep into the lungs until even speaking feels like dragging gravel across a rusted pipe. I've rigged this microphone with scraps of copper wire and the last surviving transistor I scavenged from a gas station radio, but even with all that work, my voice crackles and cuts. Maybe that's fitting. Maybe it mirrors the way I feel, fractured, strained, close to burning out. But I keep talking. If nothing else, the sound of a human voice is proof that the world hasn't gone completely silent. The drought presses harder every day. The rivers have retreated into nothing but bone-dry scars across the land, their banks cracking like old pottery, left too long in the sun. Once, when I was a boy, I swam in a river so cold it bit at my skin and made me gasp. That same
riverbed is now just a trench of dust, and I find myself wondering if I ever dreamed it.
Sometimes I think memory plays cruel tricks, showing us images of what was to remind us of what will never be again. I've been rationing water down to a science. 3 mouthfuls in the morning, 2 more in the evening, and if I'm lucky, enough left to wet a rag and wipe the grit from my eyes. Food? That's a harder battle. The canned goods are running thin. I've stretched every tin of beans, every bag of rice, until nothing remains but the faint metallic tang in the bottom of the container. I used to curse leftovers. Now I scrape at the inside of old cans like a starving dog. Every calorie matters, and even then I can feel my body wearing itself down. But the hunger isn't the worst part. It's the whispers. Travelers passing through what few still dare speak of raiders roaming the highways, men and women who gave up on scraps of humanity and now live by tearing apart anyone weaker than them. They strip survivors of food, of clothing, of life itself, if it suits them. I've seen them once, silhouettes on a ridge at dusk, their movements jerky, predatory, like wolves who learned how to stand upright. I didn't stick around to learn more. I ducked into the shadows, killed the lantern, and prayed the night swallowed me whole. I don't know how long I can avoid them. They say raiders travel in packs of 8, 10, sometimes more. They have trucks, engines that still run on siphoned fuel, and guns, always guns. Meanwhile, I have a half-functional generator, a battered rifle with only 6 bullets, and a shelter
of crumbling concrete that used to be a community radio station.
When the wind howls through the broken windows, the whole place feels like it could collapse. Maybe it already has, and I'm just too stubborn to leave. And yet, there are stories. Rumors carried like fragile seeds on the dust-choked wind. Survivors. Whisper of water, not puddles, not trickles, but a true source. A spring hidden in the northern mountains, where the earth still breathes. Some say a community has formed there, defending it, thriving. Others swear it's just another lie, bait to lure the desperate into traps. I can't say which is true, but the thought of it gnaws at me, keeps me awake when I should be conserving strength. A spring, if it exists, it could save me, it could save others. But hope is a dangerous currency. It drives people to kill just
as easily as it drives them to live. I've seen too much of both. 2 nights ago, I met a man on the highway, just a flicker of movement in the distance at first. I almost turned back, but hunger made me reckless. He called himself Jonas, said he'd been walking for days, living on scraps of cactus flesh and the rare insect he could catch in the sand. His cheeks were hollow, his skin burned raw from the
sun. I offered him a sip of water, barely a mouthful, and for a moment his eyes lit up with something like gratitude. But later, when I closed my eyes to rest, I heard the click of metal against metal. Jonas had found my rifle. He thought he could end me in my sleep and take what little I had. Lucky for me, the rifle wasn't loaded. Bullets are too precious to keep in the chamber. When he realized it, he panicked. I woke to his fumbling and tackled him to the ground. His bones felt brittle beneath my grip. I could have killed him. Maybe I should have. Instead, I shoved him into the dirt and told him to keep walking, eastward, away from me. Mercy feels like weakness these days. But I don't want to become what the raiders are. I don't want to forget what it means to be human. Still, I can't shake the thought. What if Jonas finds the spring before I do? What if he wasn't a starving wanderer at all, but a scout, testing me, measuring what I had? Paranoia keeps me alive. It also tears me apart. The environment isn't easing up either. Temperatures climb higher every day, and without trees, without crops, the land radiates heat like an oven. Asphalt melts beneath my boots when I risk walking during the day. The birds are gone, the insects mostly dead. Even the scavenger dogs have grown scarce. What's left are skeletal herds of deer and cattle, their hides draped loose across sharp bones, staggering toward death. I've caught myself staring at their corpses too long, calculating what little meat might still cling to their frames. That thought alone makes me sick, but hunger overrides disgust. Hunger erases morality. Science explains all this, doesn't it? The climatologists warned us. Greenhouse gases, atmospheric destabilization, the collapse of jet streams. They said the water cycle would fracture, long droughts followed by storms so violent they'd strip the land raw. We didn't listen. And now here we are. I can almost hear their lectures in my head as I study the horizon, soil erosion, hydrological collapse, desertification. They said humanity was digging its own grave. I guess they were right. And yet, maybe not all graves are final, because there's something else. A fragment of rumor buried beneath the dust. Survivors say that the community guarding the spring has light. Not firelight, not lanterns, but electric light. Some scavenged technology they've managed to restore. A generator? Solar panels? No one knows, but if it's true, if they've managed to bring back not only water but power, then maybe they've built something resembling a future. That's the kind of hope that tempts even a rational man into risking everything. But I hesitate, because hope, like water, is rationed. Too much at once, and it drowns you. I think about leaving every day, packing what little food I have, strapping on my rifle, walking north until my feet bleed, following the stars as my compass. But then the wind howls through these broken walls, and I tell myself one more night, just one more broadcast. Maybe someone else will hear me. Maybe someone else will answer. Maybe I won't have to go alone. Still, the tension builds. Supplies dwindle. Raiders circle closer. The storms that do come are more violent than anything I've ever seen. Walls of dust so thick they strip paint from metal and blind you at
arm's length. And through it all, that whisper remains. Water, light, survival, or maybe it's just another mirage. The air tastes like copper tonight. Heavy, unforgiving. I keep looking out toward the horizon, and I swear it's like the
world's holding its breath. The last few days have been nothing but whispers of dust storms rolling down from the high plains. Storms so massive, they eat whole towns alive. I've seen what they leave behind. Silence, ruin, skeletons of buildings sticking out from the earth, like broken teeth. And now it's here. I can feel the static crawling across my skin. The animals knew first. The few strays still clinging to life in this hell, they bolted before the sky even changed color. Birds vanished, not even a crow circling above. Then came the shift. The horizon went from bruised red to a solid wall of black. Not clouds, not smoke. Something heavier, something with weight. I've got minutes, maybe less. The generator's coughing in the corner, sputtering like an old man drowning on his own breath.
I tried coaxing it, even prayed a little to a God I don't think listens anymore, but the fuel's low and the filters are clogged. If the storm takes out the power, then this signal dies with it. My voice, this radio, it'll all go silent, and...
Silence is death out here. You want to know what survival feels like at the edge? It's a coin flip every damn second. You tell yourself you'll make it, that you're different, stronger, smarter. But the truth? The truth is, this storm doesn't care. Nature stopped caring a long time ago. I found a water cache yesterday, buried deep beneath a collapsed overpass. For a moment I thought it was salvation. Barrels still sealed, still clean. But standing over it, I realized something. It wasn't enough, not for me, not for anyone else out here. A single stash won't fix a world that's already bleeding.
Out. That's when I heard it again. The rumour. A voice over broken static, carried on a shortwave frequency I shouldn't have been able to catch.
Someone out there is claiming they found it, a functioning aquifer, untouched, hidden beneath the ruins of an old research facility. They say there's clean water flowing like it used to before the rivers dried up. They say there's power,
too. Enough to run machines, maybe even rebuild. It sounds like a lie. It has to be. We've chased ghosts like that before. Whole caravans left chasing salvation, only to be swallowed by the storms or by raiders lying in wait. And yet the thought burns in my chest. What if it's true? What if somewhere just beyond this wasteland there's a chance? The storm is closer now. I can feel the ground trembling beneath my boots, like the earth itself is afraid. My hands are shaking, not from fear, at least not the kind you think, but from the weight of choice. Do I stay here, in this bunker, waiting out another wave of disaster, knowing supplies won't last, and the air grows thinner every day? Or do I take the risk, chase the rumor, gamble everything on the faint possibility that there's still hope somewhere out there? I've buried too many to count. Family, friends, strangers who wandered in, broken and left in silence. Every grave is a reminder that waiting isn't living, it's dying slower. The wind hits, it's like standing in front of a freight train made of sand and fire. The walls groan, dust pours in through every crack, and for a second I can't hear my own heartbeat over the roar. The generator sputters one last time and goes dark. The only sound left is the storm, howling like a living thing hungry for flesh. Light a flare. The red glow barely cuts through the dust. My mask is cracked. If the filters give out, the storm will strip my lungs raw. I think about shutting down the radio, conserving the last of the battery, but no, someone might still be listening. Someone might still need to hear this. Because maybe, just maybe, if I don't make it through this night, these words will. You listening out there? If you are, hear me. Don't waste time. The world isn't waiting for you to be brave. It isn't pausing until you're ready. If you think you've found hope, if you think there's a chance at something better, you take it. Even if it kills you, at least you went down fighting for more than just survival. That's the choice I've made. I'm going to follow the signal. I'm going to find that place, whether it's real or just another lie the wasteland whispers to keep us moving. Because the alternative, sitting here waiting to rot, that's no life. The roof shakes above me.
The flare flickers. For a moment, I close my eyes and remember rain. Real rain, not acid, not ash, not mud. Just clean water, falling from the sky, washing the world in silver. I remember the way it smelled, the way it tasted, the way it felt on my skin.
That memory alone is enough to push me forward. So here it is, my turning point. I'm leaving the bunker. I'm heading into the storm. If I don't make it, then this is my last broadcast. But if I do, if I find what's waiting out there, then
Maybe, just maybe, this signal will carry something more than warnings and static. Maybe it'll carry hope. The storm has passed.
not gone, not erased, just passed. That's the thing about disasters. They don't end, they just move on, leave scars and wait for the next chance to strike. I'm alive. Somehow. Against every odd, stacked against me, against the weight of ash and storm, against the hunger clawing at my insides, against the loneliness pressing harder than the dust-laden sky. My heart still beats, my lungs still burn with each breath, and I still have words left to give. That has to count for something. But the land
looks worse than before. The riverbed, once whispered about as a possible salvation, is a cracked wound stretching out under the faded light. No trickle, no glimmer of reflection, only hardened mud and fractures that run like veins through the earth. I walk its length sometimes, just to remind myself it's real, not a dream, not some cruel joke my mind made up. Every time I think maybe, just maybe, water might return. And every time the earth laughs in silence. What was the outcome of it all? Did I win? Did I lose? That's a question I keep circling. I'm still here. So in one sense, that's victory. But what did it cost? And what did it mean? The storm took more than shelter. It buried the last stock of food I had hidden, tore the roof from the outpost, and scattered my signal equipment across the sands. For hours, maybe days, I thought the broadcast would end there. That silence would claim my little corner of the world, and all of you listening, if you're still listening, would think I'd gone dark like the rest. But by some twist of fate, a battered panel still clung to life, and the wires I thought useless sparked back into a stubborn hum. That's why you hear me now. Because even technology in ruin has more will than some of us left breathing. And yet, amid the ruin, there was something. I found it in the wreckage after the winds died and the dust settled, half buried beneath twisted scrap and earth. A container, plastic, brittle but sealed. Inside, water. Real water, not much. Barely a handful, but enough to wet my lips and remind me that my body wasn't already a corpse walking. Do you know what it feels like to taste hope? Not the idea of it, but the real, wet, life-giving truth of it on your tongue. It burns almost. Stings. I thought I'd forgotten how to swallow anything but grit and ash. That single swallow brought me back from the edge. But here's the problem with hope. Once it slips into your bloodstream, you start to crave more. I began walking further after that, pushing past the limits I'd drawn for myself, searching for anything, any sign that the rumors were true. A community up north, or a spring hidden beneath the fractured land. Maybe just another lie, but lies have kept me alive before, so who am I to spit on them? Along the way, I saw signs of others. Bootprints in the dust. A torn scrap of fabric, fluttering against a jagged fence post, charred remains of a fire pit with bones scattered around it. Human bones. The raiders are still out there. The desperate, the broken, the ones who decided survival means turning teeth on their own kind. I wonder how close they came while I slept. I wonder if they heard my voice drifting out of the static and followed it, like wolves drawn to a wounded
animal. Maybe they'll find me soon. Maybe they already have. But here's what's changed in me. I'm not running from it anymore.
The storm took fear from me, stripped it down to nothing. What's left is acceptance. I can't fight nature, I can't fight hunger forever, but I can choose how I face it. Do I trust? Do I keep calling into the void, hoping someone good will hear instead of someone hungry? Or do I go silent, keep what little I have to myself, let the world fade until there's nothing left of me but bones in the dust? That's the real battle now. Not storm versus man. Not hunger versus will, but hope versus despair. Some nights I dream of the world before. Running water. Cold drinks dripping with condensation. Markets lit with neon and filled with noise. Arguments that mattered. Laughter that felt endless. I wake from those dreams with the taste of loss, heavier than the emptiness in my stomach. Other nights I dream of nothing. Just black. Maybe that's mercy. As for the environment, has it healed or broken further? I don't know. Some days I think the storm carried more than destruction. I've seen shoots, green, fragile, trembling, pushing through cracks in the dry earth. Impossible.
Maybe, but I've touched them with my own hands, felt life where there should be none.
And then, other days, I watch the horizon disappear under another wall of dust, darker and thicker than the last. And I think maybe the planet is just playing with me. A cruel tease before it finishes the job. What's the truth? Both, probably. The earth heals and breaks in cycles the same way we do. For every sprout, there's a storm. For every mouthful of water, a week of thirst. For every moment of hope, a night of despair. That's the rhythm now, but here's where I stand. As the dust clears once again, I am not who I was when this began. I was afraid then. I thought survival meant clinging, hiding, holding my breath until it was safe to exhale. Now I know better. Survival isn't hiding. Survival is speaking, shouting, refusing to go quiet, even when the world begs you to. If
anyone still out there? If you're hearing this, I want you to know you're not alone. The storm didn't take me. The hunger didn't hollow me out completely. I'm still here, and so are you. That has to mean something. The world hasn't healed. Not yet, but maybe it can.
Maybe if enough of us keep walking, keep searching, keep speaking, we'll find a place where the cracks close, where the rivers flow again, where trust isn't a weakness, but the only way forward. Or maybe that's just another lie, another
fantasy keeping me upright. I don't care. A lie that keeps you breathing is worth more than silence that buries you. So I'll keep talking.
I'll keep walking. I'll keep hoping, even if it kills me. Because what's the alternative? Silence. And silence, my friends, is death long before the body gives out. The fire's almost gone now. The last of the embers glow faintly, cracking, soft and low, like a whisper that doesn't want to be heard. I watch it struggle in the dark, a single fragile light refusing to die out. Funny, isn't it? That's survival in a nutshell, burning low just enough to say, I'm still here. The
storm passed.
The machines, or whatever was left of them, went quiet. The air's a little cleaner tonight, or maybe that's just wishful thinking. The ruins around me are still ruins. The ground is still scarred. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm the only ghost haunting this broken world. I think about what happened, what I had to do, the choice I made. There's no undoing it, no going back. But maybe it's not about going back anymore. Maybe it's about going forward. Even if forward looks like crawling across broken glass, even if forward means carrying scars that never heal.
I won't pretend the world is fixed. It isn't. The rivers didn't start flowing again, the soil didn't turn green, and the cities didn't magically spring back to life. If there's a God watching all this, he's either sleeping or laughing.
But even so, there's this quiet little pulse of hope. Weak, fragile, trembling, but real. Maybe that's all we've ever needed. The truth is, survival isn't some grand, heroic thing. It's ugly. It's waking up every morning with sand in your lungs and fear in your bones. It's eating whatever doesn't kill you. It's learning which shadows are empty and which ones have teeth. Survival is one small decision at a time. Breathe again, take one more step, light one more fire, and hope. Hope is smaller than that. Hope is the sound of a child's laughter in the distance, even if you can't be sure it was real. Hope is finding one last can of water and realizing you can share it instead of hoarding it. Hope is seeing the horizon and knowing the sun hasn't given up yet, even if the sky is bruised and bleeding. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. Maybe it'll be worse. Maybe I won't wake up at all. But tonight, as I sit here with the last sparks of this fire, I feel like tomorrow is worth gambling on. Maybe you're out there listening right now. Maybe you've been following my voice through the static, through the dust, through the dark. If you are, I want you to hear this. Don't stop. Don't stop moving. Don't stop fighting. Don't stop hoping. The world's been broken before. It just looks different this time. And maybe, just maybe, we're the ones who get to stitch it back together. I think back to who I was before all this. Someone softer. Someone slower. Someone who thought survival was just about making it through the day. I know better now. Survival is about what you choose to carry with you and what you choose to leave behind. I've buried a lot of people in my memory. Faces, voices, laughter. It all comes back when the nights are long. Sometimes it hurts too much to remember, but forgetting would hurt even worse, so I carry them with me. Every step I take is theirs too. Every breath I steal from this poisoned world belongs to them as much as me. Maybe that's the real victory. Not that I survived, but that they still do through me. If you're out there, you've probably lost people too. Don't let them vanish. Carry them. Speak their names even if no one answers back. That's how we win. That's how we make sure the world doesn't eat everything it touches. The night's quiet now. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl because you know it won't last. Something will come tomorrow, the storm, the scavengers, the hunger. It always does, but I'll be ready. We'll all be ready if we keep going. Maybe one day, years from now, someone will find these words, or remember my voice cutting through the static. Maybe they'll shake their head and wonder how anyone kept living through the collapse. If that day comes, I want them to know it wasn't courage, it wasn't strength, it was just stubbornness, and maybe love. The kind of love that makes you share your last piece of bread even when you're starving. The kind of love that keeps you walking when you'd rather lie down and let the world swallow you. The kind of love that whispers, stay alive if only for one more day. That's the message I want to leave behind. So here it is, my last broadcast of the night. The fire is almost gone, the static is building, and the dark is pressing closer. But I'm still here, and as long as I'm here, I'll keep sending my voice out into the silence. Not because I expect an answer, not because I believe things will ever go back to the way they were, but because as long as there's a voice, there's proof that we
haven't been silenced. If you're listening, don't let go. Keep breathing, keep hoping, keep fighting for one more sunrise. The world may be gone, but we're still here. And as long as we're still here, we've got a chance. This is my final
word tonight: stay alive, stay human.